Just a 4-game slate and an early lock time for today in daily fantasy baseball. So our job is to break down this 4-game slate, let you know where you can find upside over on FanDuel, get you off on your way so you can fill out your lineups before lock, which is set for 1:07 p.m. Eastern. We're going to break that down right now to get you ready for Thursday's slates. Welcome on into the solo shot. That's right here on the FanDuel Podcast Network and numberFire.com. My name is Jim Sanas. I am a senior writer and analyst for numberFire, here to break down Thursday's 4-game main slate with locks up for 1:07 p.m. Eastern for today. Now, there are 3 games tonight. There currently is no slate available for those specifically on FanDuel. I'm going to talk about those 3 games because I assume a slate will be up eventually for them. But as of right now, there's nothing. So if you want to check out thoughts without salaries for that 3-game slate later on, check out the timestamp in the episode description. Jump there, see what we got. Or if you're listening after 1:07 p.m. Eastern and don't want to listen to the main slate, just jump ahead to that and see what my thoughts are. And again, hopefully there's a slate up, because if not, oh well, we're going to go through that. So just 3 pitchers and 3 stacks to the main slate to get you on your way. As far as weather goes on this main slate, 3 retractable roofs on this slate. 2 of those should be closed. That is in Miami for the Marlins and the Padres, and in Arizona for the Diamondbacks and Rockies. That one they've already said will be closed for today. So downgrade park factor there. Downgrade park factor kind of, I guess, in Miami. The roof is closed pretty often there, so that doesn't make a huge difference. But Toronto, it should be open. 81 degrees there. Also 81 in New York for the Mets and Phillies. So best parks as far as temperature for today are in Toronto for the Brewers and Blue Jays, and in New York for the Phillies and Mets. Still do like Arizona, obviously, but not full Arizona with the roof being closed for today. We'll dive in and outline what that means, talk about some pitchers, talk about some stacks here in just 1 second. But first, a reminder to make sure you're subscribed to the numberFire Daily Fantasy Podcast feed wherever you get your podcasts. We, of course, are also over on the FanDuel YouTube page. So if you want to check out a video version of the show, just subscribe to the FanDuel YouTube page. If you like what you hear, leave us a thumbs up as always. And if you like what you hear on the podcast side of things, leave us a 5-star rating over on Apple Podcasts. It is almost time to crown an NBA champion, and FanDuel wants you to be part of the excitement, because right now, new customers can get a no-sweat first bet up to $2,500. That's $2,500 back in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. There is no better place to bet all the playoff or the finals action than America's #1 sportsbook, FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. Must be 21 plus and present in select states. First online real money wager only. $10 deposit required. Refund issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire in 14 days. Restrictions apply. See full terms at FanDuel.com/sportsbook. FanDuel is offering online sports wagering in Kansas under an agreement with Kansas Star Casino, LLC. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit FanDuel.com/RG. In Arizona, 1-800-NEXT-STEP or text NEXT STEP to 53342. In Connecticut, 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat. In Indiana, 1-800-9-WITH-IT. In Wyoming and Kansas, 1-800-522-4700. Or in Kansas, ksgamblinghelp.com. Louisiana is 1-877-770-STOP. In Massachusetts, gamblinghelplinema.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support. In Maryland, mdgamblinghelp.org. In New York, 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. And in West Virginia, go to 1-800-GAMBLER.net. Pitching preview for today's main slate, Kevin Gausman comes in with the highest salary on FanDuel. He checks in at 11-1, followed by Jesus Luzardo at 10,000. Freddie Peralta checks in at 93, with Max Scherzer at 9,200. Nobody else above 8,000 on this slate. And even though it's just 4 games, all those guys are pretty fun. I have had fun with all those guys at some point throughout this year, and there's also a value play I like. But despite that, I think that Kevin Gausman has to be the top guy. He's at home facing a banged up Brewers offense right now. I think he needs to be #1 despite the lofty salary at $11,100. The Brewers lacking one of their best hitters right now in Willy Adames. The active roster without him has just a 99 WRC plus against righties with a 24% strikeout rate, and they don't get a ton of fly balls. The fly ball aspect is good for Gausman because he has struggled with hard contact this year. It's been the big flaw for him thus far. The hard hit rate for Gausman across 11 starts is 44%. That's why he's had some underwhelming starts. Even in those underwhelming starts, though, the strikeouts have been there. He has a 32% strikeout rate overall with a 6% walk rate. He has had 8+ strikeouts in 6 of 11 starts, and he had 7 in 2 others. So if we put Gausman up against an offense that's healthier or more dangerous than the Brewers are right now, I'd be okay pivoting, but the Brewers aren't that at the moment. I have Gausman projected for 8.4 strikeouts. That is the tops on the slate by a good margin, so I'll put him there myself too. Even on a good slate, Kevin Gausman is number 1. Now, number 2 is a value play, and I do think this guy might not be second overall for me straight up, but once you account for his low salary at $7,500, he is. That guy is Joe Musgrove, and he's had some bumpy starts so far this year. His overall ERA is 5.64, but I don't think that's an accurate representation of how he has pitched. And he started to pick things up recently. Got a great matchup for tonight, so I want to be on him in DFS as he faces the Marlins. That is the best matchup on the slate here. They have an 87 WRC plus against righties with a 32% fly ball rate and a 122 ISO. They're not a big strikeout team, but they also don't draw many walks, which allows pitchers to get deep in games against them. I had the Marlins money line last night and regretted it for most of that game. They did win eventually, but you're kind of thinking, why did I have any faith this offense could score a single run? Because they did not until the 9th inning. That's kind of the offense they've got right now. Musgrove was injured open this year, but it was his toe. I guess I don't care a ton about that. His velocity so far is actually higher this year than it was last year. He's throwing fewer sinkers, which we always love. He's also cutting back on his sliders, which is not as fun, but hasn't been a terrible thing because he's been doing this now for 17 starts, dating back to last year. And I'm okay taking a broader sample on Musgrove because the velo has still been good so far this year. In that 17-star sample, he has a 3.71 skill interactive ERA with a 24% strikeout rate, and he has let a very little hard contact. When you put that in a matchup like this, the floor is very high. I think he has a path to a good ceiling too, so I'm willing to buy into Musgrove before we see him fully pop off this year. I think the matchup is conducive to that, and it's a small slate. So for $7,500, that's more than enough to make Musgrove, after considering his salary, second pretty easily. And let's say you just want to be off of Gausman for today. I think you pivot to Musgrove as being your top guy on this slate. I feel good about that personally. I know it has not worked out yet, but I think the building blocks for a good game are very much there for Musgrove. So Gausman 1, Musgrove 2. The third slot is between Max Scherzer and Jesus Luzardo. I like both these guys. I'm going to rank Scherzer higher. His salary is lower, which does help. $800 lower. He's at 92, whereas Luzardo is at 10,000. But Luzardo is close enough if you are wary of Scherzer, which is justifiable for sure. Scherzer, though, coming off his best start of the year, he held the Rockies to 1 run at Coors Field across 7 innings. He had 8 strikeouts there and a 15.7% swinging strike rate. Now, that is a great matchup for a righty, and he's facing the Phillies today. That's a lot tougher than facing the Rockies, regardless of where it is. 103 WRC plus for the Phillies against righties, but they will strike out. 24% strikeout rate for them. So I don't know if Scherzer is fully back, but his salary is not fully back up, so that helps. He's at home, which is nice. I've got him projected for 6.13 strikeouts, which is legitimately identical down to the hundreds place, identical to Luzardo's mark. So I don't blame you if you want to go Luzardo, but I do give the slight edge to Scherzer. So to me, it is going to be Gausman 1, Musgrove 2, Scherzer 3, Luzardo 4, and I think there might be a tier difference between Musgrove and Scherzer after you consider the salary on Musgrove for today. That's pitching. Let's talk now about stacks. And stacks I do think are a bit harder because a lot of the offenses that are in good matchups are bad offenses. I don't think that's entirely true with Arizona, and they're going to be the top stack for today. They're facing Connor Seabold, and Seabold, I think we got a large enough sample here to say we can stack against him. We're up to 6 longer outings for Seabold as he stretches out. 5 starts, 1 longer relief outing. It's a profile we can stack against. In those 6 outings, he has a 5.39 skill interactive ERA with a 14% strikeout rate. He's letting up enough hard contact and fly balls to be good with stacking against him. ERA is 6.23. That's not something I want to hold against him because 4 of those 6 appearances have been at Coors Field. But foreseeable, the most recent road start was in Arlington against the Rangers. Very good offense, but let up 5 earned runs and 2 homers there. Arizona's offense not as good as Texas's. They're not great, but they're not bad. They got an above average WRC plus at 102 against righties. Their ISO is 178, which you'll take. They have guys who will steal. That's less of a factor against the Rockies because they're pretty good at suppressing that. But I do think there's upside here. I'm going to put the Diamondbacks at the top of my list as a result and feel pretty good about that. Now, if we're using Gausman, we got to find some salary savers. And Jake McCarthy is still batting lower in the order for the Diamondbacks. Probably going to bat 8th for today. And that can make him tough to swallow for 26 because that's not a super low salary. But I am definitely interested in McCarthy. He is very willing to run. He's become a rabbit recently. He has 5 steals his past 3 games. He has not hit the ball well since coming back up, but his expected WOBA is above 300. That's bad. That's not, I'm not saying this is a good thing. I'm saying he's not a total dud, I guess, a hitter. Pretty close, but not quite there. So I'm willing to give him a spin here for DFS because in his past, he's had better data as far as the hitting stuff goes. And we know there is a baseline for upside with the running. So McCarthy, gonna bat low in the order, but low salary. You want extra flexibility to get to Gausman if you're using him. I think that McCarthy can be a good route for doing so. Number 2 is going to be the Mets. They are in facing a pitcher in a revenge game, and Taijuan Walker, who gets to face his old team. And Walker did have a nice outing last week where he held the Braves to just 3 runs across 6 2/3 innings. But I am going to stack against him here. I stacked against Walker for that Braves game too, which obviously did not go well, but it could have been good because he had just 1 strikeout and 1 walk, which means he let up 26 balls in play in that game. The hard hit rate was 39%, let up a couple barrels in that game too, and he wasn't killing worms or anything. Walker's been throwing more cutters and fewer sliders recently. He has a 6-start sample doing that, and his hard hit rate allowed in that time is 46%, which is the highest number on the main slate for today. His skill interactive ERA is 4.91. He has a 17% strikeout rate, and that combination of the hard contact and the low strikeout rate has led to some rough starts. He got just 2 outs against the Giants, let up 4 earned runs before being yanked there. He let up 8 earned runs on 3 home runs to the Dodgers. Facing the Mets tonight, 107 WRC plus against righties. I think it's wise to stack against Walker here and see if we can potentially get some regression after what he did last week. I think now's a good time to buy into Francisco Lindor. The salary, not super low at 35, but also not restricted by any means. But the past 2 weeks, Lindor has a 49% hard hit rate. His ISO is 255, and he does steal bases. So that's important because the power for Lindor has not been there this year as much as in the past. If you were to add that back in on top of the steals, he becomes the kind of guy you really want to build around in DFS. So the salary, 35, is not super low by any means, but I think it's very appropriate. And I want to build around guys like Lindor, like Corbin Carroll, who have two sources of upside via the steals and the power. Lindor getting back to that right now. So I think now is the right time to buy in, given the batted ball data is improving, and we have seen that translate to some decent results as far as the batting goes as well. The third stack today is going to be the Rockies. It's not at Coors, so I'd really rather not do this. In fact, I hate doing it, but it's a thin slate. A lot of good pitchers. They kind of wind up third by default. They're facing Zach Davies, who is just his 4th start back. He's gotten knocked around quite a bit so far. His expected ERA is 5.87, issuing too many walks, not enough strikeouts. He is still doing a good job with contact suppression, and that's how Davies has gotten by in the past. And he could do that again here. But the Rockies are better against righties than lefties. They're WRC plus 93 against righties versus 66 against lefties. So the shutout last night, not great, but at least it's a righty now. They don't have the worst plate discipline numbers. If you want to pivot elsewhere, can't blame you for a second. I would give thought to the Padres against Luzardo because he does let up a lot of fly balls. Don't want to stack against him because I like him a lot, but that's probably where I'd turn next. And those fly balls could get him in trouble against a team that does have some powerful bats in the Padres. But I think the Rockies, the slightly better route here, despite the fact it kind of makes you want to vomit just thinking about doing so. There are two guys in this team who have shown both power and speed against righties. Again, that's what we want to build around in DFS this year. Those guys are Ryan McMahon and Brenton Doyle. McMahon has been on a power binge lately, but also has 4 steals this year. Doyle strikes out a ton, but when you're facing a guy like Davies, that's not as big of a concern. He has 7 steals in the majors so far and a 288 ISO in a small sample against righties. Then you got Nolan Jones, who just came up. He ran a decent amount in the minors. He's hit the ball well so far in the majors. There is some uncertainty on him if Charlie Blackmon comes back today. I would assume that Jones sticks around because he got called up before Blackmon went on the bereavement list, so he probably will stay up. But if he does, you would have Jones, McMahon, and Doyle as all guys with 2, in theory, sources of upside in this matchup. I think that's pretty attractive. So some uncertainty of the roster if Blackmon does come back, but I do think that McMahon, Doyle, and Jones, all guys who give us multiple sources of upside, which is what we should want in DFS right now. Dinger calls for this main slate. I'm going to go with the boring one with Pete Alonso because it's Pete Alonso facing Taijuan Walker, letting up a lot of hard contact. Walker doesn't have extreme platoon splits, so let's just make it easy on ourselves and go with Pete Alonso for the first dinger call. It's Pete Alonso. He's great. Great matchup, so Pete Alonso. The fun one, I will go Nolan Jones. Good power numbers in the minors. Obviously, it's the AAA park for the Rockies, also pretty offensive friendly, so have to take it with a grain of salt. But Davies lets up a lot of balls in play. Jones can strike out too much, so that does help him there, but I think he's at least interesting. So we'll go with Pete Alonso and Nolan Jones as the dinger calls on the main slate for today. Let's talk briefly about the late slate tonight. Again, it's not up yet, so I actually don't know if they'll have a slate up, but there is the all-day slate if you want to translate some of these thoughts over to that, hypothetically. But let's talk about it quickly, and then if you want to consider these teams for the all-day slate, or if you find a slate elsewhere, let's just talk about it. At pitcher for the 3 games tonight, I would be highest on Framber Valdez. I mean, there are a lot of guys here you consider, like Chris Sale, Hunter Green, Pablo Lopez, Tanner Bybee. You can consider 5 of the 6 guys legitimately, but Valdez does the best job of combining strikeouts with very good ground ball data. I'm a big Hunter Green guy, but he's on the road against a lower strikeout team. That hurts his upside. Could definitely consider Chris Sale as well, but I prefer Valdez. He'd be my number 1 pitcher for the after hours slate. As for stacks, I've been on Reed Detmers as a pitcher quite often this year. In fact, his last 2 starts, I've been on him, but he's letting up too much hard contact still, which means we could go at the Astros against him. They have a 182 ISO against lefties, a 42% fly ball rate. They're not the team I'd want to face if I were Reed Detmers because of the way that they mesh against him. Some good stack in the Astros here, and they'd be my favorite stack on the after hours slate. The second stack is tough. I think you could consider the Red Sox against Hunter Green. He is coming off an amazing start. His second start where he's gone 6+ innings and let up no hits, which is pretty impressive to do that twice in, I think, less than a year or around a year. And again, I like a lot of what he's doing. He gets a lot of strikeouts, but there's still a lot of fly balls, still a lot of hard contact here. There's at least a path to the Red Sox being good play for tonight. So I'd give a slight edge to the Red Sox as the number 2 stack behind the Astros over the Twins against Tanner Bybee. Bybee is pitching really well his past 3 games with an alternate approach. So don't want to go there. Don't really want to stack Cleveland because they stink, despite the fact that Pablo Lopez has let up a bit too much hard contact recently. So to me, stacking would be Astros, then Red Sox with Framber Valdez as a top pitcher on the after hours slate. That's all we got here for today on the Solo Shot. Back once again tomorrow for a fuller slate, as always. So make sure you are subscribed to the numberFire Daily Fantasy Podcast feed to get these shows right as they're posted wherever you get your podcasts. If you've got any questions for me, I am on Twitter at Jim Sannes, JimSannes. You can also follow the FanDuel Podcast Network at FanDuel Podcast. I want to thank you all for tuning in for today. Good luck to you with your MLB DFS lineups, and we'll talk to you once again tomorrow to preview Friday's slate. This has been the Solo Shot right here on the FanDuel Podcast Network.